Welcome. We're getting into the sources you shared with us about what is really one of the most powerful television phenomena in history, the Oprah Winfrey Show.
It's true. The scale of this whole cultural engine is um, almost impossible to fully grasp. I mean, for 25 seasons, it started September 8, 1986, and ran all the way to May 25, 2011.
A quarter of the century.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And during that time, it genuinely shaped how America talked, how it shopped, and, maybe most importantly, how it thought about self-improvement.
Okay, so let's unpack that. We know the show is huge. We have the numbers here. 25 seasons, 4,561 episodes. But our goal today is to go beyond the headlines.
Right.
We want to understand the actual mechanism, the strategic choices, both business and emotional, that made this show such a cultural force. We're looking at how it built its influence and the footprint it left on media everywhere.
And a good anchor point is just the sheer ranking. It's still the highest-rated daytime talk show in U.S. history. But the real story, the real insight, comes from looking at how Winfrey built that trust. The show functioned very deliberately as an educational platform. You had these serious self-improvement segments right alongside the big celebrity interviews.
And this is where the commercial aspect gets really interesting. Your sources point to this really brilliant counterintuitive mechanism.
Yes.
The show chose not to profit directly from most of the products it was endorsing.
Precisely. They had no licensing agreements for the favorite things giveaways. The book club made zero money from the books they selected. And that's a critical point.
Why is that so important?
Because that lack of direct commercial gain was traded for something far more valuable. Unprecedented cultural authority. The trust she built by not taking a cut made her recommendations feel, pure. It made her an unimpeachable arbiter of taste.
That's fascinating. It completely flips the standard media model. Most networks monetize access.
She monetized trust, she prioritized that cultural authority, and that's what allowed her influence to grow to a global scale. And you see it in the critical reception, too.
Right, even after she stopped submitting the show for awards.
Even then, she'd already won 47 daytime Emmys by 2000.
Yeah.
But fast forward to 2023, and Variety still places it at number 17 on its list of the 100 greatest TV shows of all time.
So we're not just looking at a daytime hit, we're studying a landmark piece of media history.
That's right.
So let's start at the beginning, but let's really focus on the speed of its ascent, because that part is just astonishing. It started in Chicago.
As AM Chicago, a half-hour talk show on WLS-TV, and it was not doing well.
It was languishing.
Absolutely. The big decision came in 1983. A new general manager, Dennis Swanson, he hired Winfrey to replace the host, Rob Weller. It was, a total Hail Mary for a show that was basically invisible in the market.
But the audience connection was immediate. She took over on January 2, 1984.
And within 1 month.
1 month.
A single month. She didn't just improve the ratings, she took the show from last place to first place in the local Chicago market.
That's an incredible trajectory.
That meteoric local success really paved the way for national syndication. By 1985, they renamed the show The Oprah Winfrey Show. And the timing was just perfect.
Because of her film career.
Exactly. She was getting major critical acclaim for her role as Sophia in The Color Purple. She got Oscar and Golden Globe nominations for it.
So you have this dual momentum, local TV dominance and Hollywood recognition. That's the perfect launch pad for the show to go national on September 8, 1986.
Right. But there's a story about that first syndicated show that really tells you everything about the choices she made from day one.
Prioritizing authenticity over spectacle.
Yes. The producers were, desperate to make a huge splash. They tried everything to book a massive star, and they were fixated on Don Johnson from Miami Vice.
The sources mentioned they even tried bribes.
They did. Dom Perignon champagne, rhinestone sunglasses, you name it.
And they still couldn't get him. Most producers would have panicked.
But that's the key. Winfrey didn't. She made a decision that basically became the show's core ethos. She told her team they should just do what we do best, and that is a show about and with everyday people.
So the theme for that huge syndicated premiere wasn't a celebrity interview.
It was how to marry the man or woman of your choice.
That is a brilliant strategic move. By centering the story on the audience, on everyday individuals, she immediately set herself apart from all the sensationalist talk shows of that era.
She claimed the moral high ground right from the start.
Yeah.
And that focus on everyday life stayed constant, even as the production itself grew into this independent giant.
And we should look at the production side of this. Harpo Studios in Chicago. Harpo, of course, is Oprah spelled backward.
That became the heart of the whole operation.
Moving to their own studios in 1990 was another key step. It gave them total independence, total control over the content and the message. And, keeping it grounded in Chicago outside of New York or LA probably reinforced that image of her as a voice for middle America.
And while the show's output was so fundamentally American, its reach was global. This wasn't just a domestic thing. It was a massive export.
It aired in 149 countries.
149. Just
Yeah.
think about that. The complexity of distributing a show that widely, the cost of translation and syndication, it tells you how much cultural resonance it must have had.
The themes just translated. Self-improvement, vulnerability, aspiration, those ideas crossed borders and amplified that cultural mechanism far beyond the U.S.
Absolutely.
So now let's get into the core of the machine, the regular segments. This is where you really see the phenomenon people call the Oprah effect take shape.
Right. This is where she becomes the ultimate arbiter of taste, of spirituality, even finance.
And we should probably define the Oprah effect for anyone who isn't familiar.
In economic terms, it's just this immediate, measurable jump in sales for anything she picked. A book, product sales could increase by hundreds of thousands, sometimes 1 million copies, literally overnight.
It could make or break a small company if they weren't ready for that kind of demand.
Oh, absolutely.
And the greatest generator of that effect, certainly culturally, was Oprah's book club.
The OBC, its power was just immense, and it was all based on that trust we talked about. By not taking a profit, she wasn't a bookseller. She was a guide, an educator.
So when she picked the title, the impact was instantaneous.
1 million more copies sold. And the club itself, it evolved. It was suspended for a bit in 2002.
That felt like a strategic move.
It was. When it came back in 2003, the focus shifted to classic literature. That was a move to solidify her reputation as a serious cultural figure, focused on literacy, not just pushing new books.
But the original format did return in 2005, which of course brings us to the biggest controversy.
Jane's Frey's memoir, A Million Little Pieces. This is where that entire mechanism of trust was put to the ultimate test.
Because the book was revealed to have fabricated parts.
And this moment is so crucial to analyze. The public confrontation with Frey on her show was painful to watch, but it was also a brilliant demonstration of the system's own resilience.
Also,
Her whole platform was built on authenticity. When that was challenged, she reacted decisively. Humiliating Frey on her own stage was her way of telling the audience, my trust is paramount and I will protect it.
that's a sharp analysis. It proved the system could self-correct. It actually confirmed her authority in the long run.
It did. But the book club also created these really profound cultural moments.
Like with Elie Wiesel's night?
Yes, in 2006, she didn't just talk about it in the studio. She traveled with Wiesel to Auschwitz. That elevated the whole concept beyond consumerism. It became a platform for historical reckoning, for moral guidance.
And she was so adept at using new tech to spread these ideas. The selection of Eckhart Tolle's A New Earth in 2008 is a perfect example.
They ran a series of live webcast classes based on the book, streamed worldwide on her website. It was so innovative. She took a spiritual text and turned it into this massive free online classroom.
Cementing her as the ultimate thought leader.
Exactly.
So if the book club was about that intellectual and spiritual investment, then Oprah's favorite things was about pure material indulgence. It was pure spectacle.
Starting in 1996, that segment became the hottest ticket in television. It wasn't just about the sales, which were astronomical, but it was about this shared, manufactured fantasy.
And what's fascinating is how she always layered a kind of philanthropy on top of the consumerism. The audience was rarely just random people.
That's the key to the psychology of it. In 2004, the whole audience was educators. In 2009, it was Hurricane Katrina volunteer workers. By giving these incredible gifts to deserving people, she justified the indulgence and reinforced her image as a benevolent figure.
The items themselves became legendary, everything from small luxuries to the biggest one of all, the iPad giveaway in 2010. She called that her personal favorite.
But she had this quote about it, which is very revealing. She said it wasn't really about the stuff. It was about sharing that moment with 300 other people, acknowledging that surprise and fantastical, sensational, wonderful, happy things can still occur in your life.
A show of communal optimism.
Exactly. And if those segments were the arms of consumption, the all-stars were the true industrial engine. Winfrey used her platform to launch a whole new generation of media experts. She basically created the modern self-help infotainment genre.
It shows her genius for taking complex information psychology, finance, medicine, and packaging it into accessible advice for everyday life.
And the story of her biggest star, Dr. Phil, actually starts with a major legal drama.
She met Phil McGraw when he was consulting for her legal team.
During the 1998 beef trial in Amarillo, Texas, she was so impressed with his direct, no-nonsense style that she brought him on the show.
And he became a fixture. That April, he started giving his tough, tell-it-like-it-is advice.
No excuses, that was his mantra. And it resonated deeply with her viewers. It was the birth of a media superstar.
And it led directly to his own show, Dr. Phil, in 2002. But here's where we have to look at the business mechanism.
Harpo Productions co-produced the show.
And that co-production model is the key to her whole financial empire. Harpo didn't just give them a platform. They kept the intellectual property, the IP, and the production control.
By owning the IP for these all-stars, she ensured that every success, every viewer, every book sale fed right back into the Harpo ecosystem. It was a closed, high-yield pipeline of experts.
It's a brilliant business strategy. Create the demand, develop the talent, and then own the distribution.
And it allowed her to cover the entire self-help map. You had Ayanla Van Zant for the spiritual side.
A former attorney and spiritual teacher. She started in the 12th season offering no-nonsense, hard-hitting advice, and her books became massive bestsellers.
Then you have the financial arm with Sue Zorman.
People remember the Sue's Smackdowns.
She offered that practical financial advice, especially on credit card debt. Her motivational style was perfect for the platform, demanding honesty and encouraging immediate change. And like the others, she built an empire from it.
And then, of course, the medical empire with Dr. Mehmet Oz.
Head of cardiac surgery at Columbia Presbyterian. He became a regular during the 2008-2009 season. His credibility was instant.
Which naturally led to the Dr. Oz show in 2009, also co-produced by Harpo. It's just astonishing when you list them out. Dr. Phil, Rachel Ray, Dr. Oz, all from the same machine.
And don't forget the third-generation spinoff, The Doctors, which came from Dr. Phil. Her mechanism wasn't just about her show. It was about defining the next 2 decades of daytime TV production.
And we should probably touch on some other segments that created buzz, like What's the Buzz?
Right. That segment was a direct application of the Oprah effect to entertainment careers. She'd introduce up-and-coming figures who had industry chatter but not mainstream fame yet.
People like Jamie Foxx and James Blunt. Blunt's album sales shot up after he was on, hitting the top 2 on the Billboard 200. The show could validate a career overnight.
And then the Wildest Dreams feature that really played into her image as this benevolent fairy godmother figure.
Fulfilling viewer dreams, a new house, meeting a celebrity. It blended spectacle with genuine emotion.
Finally, the No Phone Zone campaign in 2010. That showed her using that massive platform for clear social advocacy, trying to stop distracted driving.
It was a public safety message driven directly into millions of homes day after day.
So now we get to the moments that really forged that emotional contract with her audience. The times the show transcended television and just became part of the American cultural consciousness.
These moments blend vulnerability, celebrity, tragedy, social issues, everything.
And the foundational shift happened very early on November 10th, 1986, during a show about sexual abuse. She made a revelation that changed everything.
She revealed she had been raped by a relative at age 9. That was a pivotal moment. It shattered the boundary between host and guest.
And that decision to become a participant in a discussion of trauma rather than just a facilitator was brilliant. It transformed the show into a safe space for victims, raising awareness and giving a voice to people who are suffering in silence.
She made another big personal disclosure in 1995.
Right, during a show about women who use drugs, she talked about her own history with cocaine in her 20s.
She called it her life's great big secret.
And she connected it to the shame and guilt the guests were feeling. By relating her own struggles, she just further cemented that role as an empathetic figure who understood trauma and addiction.
But she also tackled huge social issues without a personal connection. The trip to Forsyth County, Georgia in 1987 is a really powerful example.
Forsyth County was a community that had been, for 75 years, almost exclusively white. They had aggressively resisted integration.
And she hosted a town hall there. The conversations were raw, incredibly heated.
And there was this one moment that really stuck with viewers, when a woman stood up and spoke against the potential for violence, hoping people would get some sense about them, black and white together in Forsyth County.
Oh.
It showed the show was willing to walk right into these volatile situations to force a necessary public conversation.
And her ability to get these exclusive interviews with intensely private people was just unparalleled.
The Michael Jackson interview in 1993, that's one of the most historic media events of the century.
A prime-time special from Neverland Ranch. It was the most watched interview in television history.
90 million people worldwide. Think about that. 90 million people tuned in to see someone who hadn't given an interview in 14 years. Only she could deliver that.
The content was so anticipated because of all the rumors.
He talked about his difficult relationship with his father, Joe Jackson. He tried to dispel a lot of the rumors, confirming he had vitiligo, admitting to one nose job, and the immediate effect was his album Dangerous shot back into the top 10.
The perfect example of the Oprah effect in the entertainment industry.
Exactly. And then you have a completely different kind of cultural moment, but just as impactful. Tom Cruise in 2005.
The couch jumping moment.
It's permanently etched in pop culture memory. His intensely physical, over-the-top display jumping on the couch, falling to one knee for Katie Holmes. It went viral before viral was really a thing.
It became the go-to reference for how a celebrity romance can go very wrong in public.
And the show tackled the divisive social issues head-on, like with Ellen DeGeneres' coming out in 1997.
She came out publicly on the show right as her Time magazine cover hit stands with the headline, "Yep, I'm gay."
It was a huge moment for LGBTQ visibility in the mainstream.
And it showed the show's willingness to absorb controversy. That episode got the most hate mail Winfrey had ever received, but she stood by the decision to air it.
And this ability to create an atmosphere of healing was so central to the show's identity.
We have to talk about the intensity of some of these connections. The appearance of Trudy Chase in the 1989-90 season is a prime example.
Chase was diagnosed with dissociative identity disorder from horrific abuse that started when she was just 2. She had 92 distinct personalities.
And the interview was just overwhelming for Winfrey.
While she was reading the teleprompter to introduce Chase, she just spontaneously broke down in tears. She connected the guest's childhood molestation to her own.
She was so overcome, she kept asking the producers to stop filming.
That unfiltered, raw moment, that wasn't just good television. That was the moment she fundamentally separated herself from every other host. She made the host's own vulnerability part of the healing process on screen.
Another transformative story was Joanne Compton. She was paralyzed by grief a decade after her daughter, Lorianne, was murdered.
She came on the show in 1998, just filled with resentment. And Dr. Phil gave her his signature tough advice. He helped her reframe her focus from the day of her death to celebrating the event of her life.
And her breakthrough sentence, "I never thought of it that way," became this iconic moment of change.
But the follow-up years later showed just how deep that change went. Compton revealed she had been planning to end her life after that first show.
And when she returned in 2011, she said her daughter continues to stay alive every time I do something positive. Her other daughter said she went from existing to living. That's a life-saving impact.
The story of Charlotte Nash in 2009 is another powerful example. Nash had been mauled by a chimpanzee and had devastating facial injuries.
She wore a veil because, as she said, she didn't want to scare people. She agreed to lift it for the first time in public on the show.
Just an incredible act of courage, using that platform to share her bravery. The collective sympathy from the audience was just palpable.
And then there were the moments of collective healing, the 2-day event in 2010 where 200 men who were molested came forward.
Joined by Tyler Perry, who shared his own story. Winfrey's stated goal was to help survivors release the shame of suffering in silence. It established the show as a community center for these difficult, silenced conversations.
Finally, the story of Erin Cramp in 1998, a mother dying of breast cancer.
Realizing her 6-year-old daughter, Peyton, would grow up without her, she recorded over 100 videos and audio tapes filled with motherly advice.
And bought gifts for every Christmas and birthday after she was gone. That act of proactive, enduring love resonated so deeply with viewers.
So the show's influence wasn't just emotional, it was also rooted in these unprecedented displays of spectacle that showcased its cultural dominance.
A blend of the intimate and the impossible. And the most famous example has to be the Pontiac G6 giveaway.
Yes, the season premieres in 2004. Every single person in the audience got a new car.
About 300 people. The total value was around $8 million.
And we all know the quote, you get a car, everybody gets a car. But think about the logistics behind that. How do you get 300 cars ready, titled, insured for one episode? It was an Extraordinary demonstration of organizational power.
And the flash mob in 2009 for the 24th season premiere was another display of that power, taking it right out into the streets of Chicago.
A surprise synchronized dance to I Got a Feeling on the Magnificent Mile. It involved 21,000 people. It showed the show's power to mobilize massive public participation, turning a major American street into her personal stage.
We've seen the global scale, but how did she humanize that massive empire? That brings us to her friendship with Gayle King.
King appeared 141 times more than any other guest.
In these segments, the Oprah and Gayle's big adventures were the perfect counterweight to all the spectacle. It let viewers see Winfrey dealing with everyday annoyances.
They had some really hilarious adventures, like the 2004 trip for the PBS series Colonial House.
The 24-hour Puritan adventure.
Chopping wood, cooking over a fire, dealing with mice, and yes, using leaves as toilet paper was so raw and made her so much more accessible.
The 2006 spa trip showed them facing their fears.
Yes, being hoisted 40 feet in the air. King is afraid of heights and wouldn't let go, and Winfrey couldn't stop laughing. It just perfectly captured a real long-term friendship.
And then the big one, the 11-day, 3,600-mile road trip across America in 2006.
They had minor meltdowns. They fought over the radio. Winfrey's driving anxieties, King's tone-deaf singing. It all just humanized her and proved the authenticity of their friendship.
Even in the final season, they went camping at Yosemite National Park.
And that trip had a purpose: to help a park ranger attract more African-American visitors. It blended personal fun with a social mission, which was classic Oprah. Their trailer hit a rock, and they ended up mixing Moscow mules for their camping neighbors.
But despite all that goodwill, the show faced intense scrutiny. The 1996 beef trial is a landmark case.
It started when she said that fears about mad cow disease had stopped her cold from eating another burger. Texas cattle ranchers sued her for libel.
Under a very specific veggie libel law.
The whole production had to move to Amarillo, Texas for about a month while they were still taping the show. It was a logistical nightmare. And as a side note, this is where she met Phil McGraw.
She was found not liable, and her quote after the verdict, "Free speech rocks," became this memorable moment that reframed the whole thing as a defense of press freedom.
The show also dealt with complaints about controversial content. There was a 2005 episode about a sexual practice that ignited a ton of FCC complaints.
That was unique because it was largely spurred on by other media figures like Howard Stern and Jimmy Kimmel, who were trying to expose an FCC double standard.
And then there was the criticism for featuring advocates of alternative medicine.
This is a fair point of criticism. Figures like Suzanne Summers and, notably, the vaccine denialist Jenny McCarthy were given this huge platform. It sparked a lot of backlash from the scientific community.
It really highlights the central tension of her model. The same trust that let her have these crucial social discussions also made her platform a powerful vehicle for, at times, unverified health advice.
The show also faced political criticism, especially during the 2008 presidential campaign.
Winfrey was criticized for not inviting Republican vice presidential candidate Sarah Palin on her show until after the election, leading to accusations of bias.
And there was even a minor controversy during the lead-up to the big Australia trip involving McDonald's.
Yes. A sponsored segment claimed Australians love to hang out at hip cafes, which angered the Australian coffee industry, who felt it misrepresented their coffee culture. It just shows that even a small misstep could spark international outrage because her reach was so immense.
So let's talk about the decision to end the most successful show in daytime history. It turns out she had considered quitting much earlier.
Early in the 12th season, she said she was just exhausted and thought about walking away.
But her experience filming the movie Beloved in 1998 changed her mind.
Filming that movie connected her so deeply to her own ancestry and the history of slavery. She said she felt she had no right to quit, coming from a history of people who had no voice, who had no power. That led to her slogan, "Live your best life."
That sense of moral imperative kept the show going, but the end was eventually signaled by a major business move.
The new network. In 2008, she announced the joint venture with Discovery to create the Oprah Winfrey Network, OWN. It was a clear shift from running a daily show to becoming a cable media mogul.
The official announcement came on November 20, 2009. The show would end in 2011 after its 25th season.
She framed it as a sense of completion. She said 25 was the perfect number, the exact right time.
The farewell season kicked off with a massive international spectacle.
The premiere audience, 300 ultimate fans, were all given an 8-day, all-expenses-paid trip to Sydney, Australia.
with their plane piloted by John Travolta.
And that trip was a major piece of international PR. The Australian government spent millions on it.
Tourism Minister Martin Ferguson called it money well spent for the expected tourism boost, an incredible investment based entirely on the power of her platform.
The farewell season was a star-studded walk down memory lane, cast reunions for The Sound of Music, The Color Purple, and she got her first ever interview with a sitting president and first lady, Barack and Michelle Obama.
And President Obama publicly thanked her, saying, "Nobody knows how to connect better than you do."
The actual finale was preceded by this massive two-part celebrity special at the United Center in Chicago.
An overwhelming display of A-list power. Aretha Franklin, Tom Cruise, Beyoncé, Madonna, Tom Hanks, and hundreds of graduates from her Morehouse College Scholarship Program were there to thank her.
But the very final episode itself was deliberately scaled back. It was a quieter affair in the usual studio, focused on thanking her staff and fans.
She ended the show in tears, saying, "We have hooted and hollered together, had our aha moments, we ugly cried together. So I thank you all for your support and your trust in me."
And her final words were a fitting end to the whole movement.
"I won't say goodbye, I'll just say, until we meet again, to God be the glory." And the finale got the show's highest rating in 17 years. The mechanism held right to the very end.
So to synthesize all this, the essence of the show was this unique balancing act. It was high-end spectacle blended with deep vulnerability. It was a monolithic cultural engine that gained its power by strategically foregoing direct profit on endorsements, which gave it the unprecedented power to influence consumer decisions, shift social discourse, and launch entire media careers through its own IP structure. It redefined what a talk show could be by blending, healing, aspiration, and consumerism into one unified platform.
An incredible case study in media, business, and cultural psychology.
Which really raises an important question for you, the listener, to think about. Considering the show's immense centralized power to launch experts and dictate bestseller lists for a quarter century, what structural replacement exists for that today? Is there a single monolithic voice of influence in our fragmented media landscape?
Or has that kind of centralized trust just ceased to be possible?
A great question.
It is. A fascinating thought to mull over. Thank you for joining us for this exploration of the ultimate mechanism of daytime television.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening.